The information was recorded into the Sphera Menti, and then that was at some point placed into the earth, which gave rise to our evolutionary blueprint. We could say that is the divine plan that applies to all of us right here and now. We are here because we went through that in one way, shape, or form. It might be in a bit of an assumption. It might be that some of us here are interstellar beings, so-called star children, indigo crystal children, and so forth, that weren't part of that original destruction or the fall of Terra. It might be that we just, put our hands up and said, I'll come down and help sort this shit out. You might better relate if you feel, resonating when I'm saying that. Perhaps that is the case. But for the most part, the lost souls of Terra, the Tyrannusium, had descended into the first harmonic. This is contained within the Sphera Menti. It's part of our legacy, and is actually the pathway through which we can ascend back into Terra, the Garden of Eden, and continue the original divine plan, which was to continue forth with the planet moving up the dimensional scales, us along with it, right? Pretty mind-blowing stuff, isn't it, if it's new information? So this gives rise to the first seeding of the human race. Now, I'm going to be quite rapid here. I've already been pretty rapid, but I'm just checking the time, and it's 8:49 now. I hope you can forgive me for taking a little bit longer, but it's just, as I said, there's a lot to get through. I don't want to butcher it too badly, and I think, if anything, we can cut it up, perhaps, and cut it into sections. It's information that needs to be out there, and I already feel like I'm not necessarily qualified for the job, so I'll try and do it as well as I can. So bear with me as we move through this. So the first seeding of the human race naturally was that actually what happened is to reclaim the original souls of the lost souls of Terra. 5 different races were materialized onto the planet of Earth once it had sort of cooled down and, established a solid planetary particle base and livable habitat. 25 million years ago, this is when the first seeding of the human race took place. 5 root races that were to evolve, and these were ethereal beings at this stage, DNA strands 1 through 6. So you get a physical body, in other words, and you've got to evolve the other 5 strands, and 5 cloistered races. So the root races, they are like the sort of base chakra up. So they are, the physical manifestation, or the we could say the feminine aspect, or the solid material reality aspect. The cloistered races were to materialize the higher etherical strands. So these were not entirely physical beings. They were to evolve strands 7 through 12, again 7, so they got a body form, an ethereal body form, and they have to evolve the additional 5 strands. So that was their role. And they had, I won't include the race names here, perhaps in a future presentation, but they had brown skin, they had black skin, they had red skin or reddish tone, they had yellowish tone, and they had whitish skin. So they all had equal roles in developing and re-establishing the consciousness that had fragmented from the cataclysmic Terra, which was designed into this plan of moving up through the dimensional fields and integrating back into the full 12-strand DNA package that we have kind of looked over in the last webinar to a degree, in a very simplistic way, didn't we? Talked about how you make it rain and the dam water goes up, and as your frequency rises, the DNA activates. So that is a really simple way of conveying how this takes place. But you can see how at this stage, actually, they didn't require to reincarnate because they were so ethereal. It was more that they had incarnational cycles, so they experienced being part of each of the races, picked up the DNA and activated it according to the awareness within that race group, because they all just had different awareness, just like we have different cultures in the world today. It's all just different awareness, isn't it? We've got to come to understand that we all carry part of the essential genetic code. It's all important. We have to integrate it. We can't fight with each other and try and act like one race is better than the other, because obviously it's not. So clearly it's mathematics, isn't it? We have aspects that are needed. We have to learn from each other and integrate this, or we can't ascend together. So what happened, and I'll just in a nutshell summarize what happened with the first seeding because we don't really have time, is that, I created a little kind of a zooming animation there. There we go, to make it seem a little cooler. So they got seeded throughout the planet in various locations. I think because there's so many slides in this presentation, the computer's a bit slow. They went about their business and began to evolve. Now, what happened is, and again, I'm just cutting to the chase here. We don't have time to go into this extensively, but other races became involved and started to interfere in the evolution of the first seeding. And this ended in the electric wars circa 5.5 million years ago. So we're really jumping forward in time a lot, where great beings of pure energy intervened and come through and really, ultimately destroyed these intruder races. But in doing so, because, and this is kind of like a theatrical representation here with the Zeus and his lightning bolt, but this is what it said in the Voyager's material, is these energies, these pure beings from, probably the fourth, fifth harmonic universe materialized a form of light and electrum and just destroyed shit, just took it down. But as a result, the surface was, annihilated. They were using kind of photosonic weapons, based in radionic light waves and sound vibrations, like, beyond our comprehensibility, far beyond technological capability of nuclear bombs and so forth. So just obliterate the surface. This ends the first seeding. Second seeding begins around 4 million years ago and proceeded to 148,800 years ago. And we'll give a little more detail to this if you are willing to hear me out. So we'll flip back into this scale to kind of frame this up in a different way as well, because it has to do with some of the other races that became involved. I'll start to give a bit more detail to this. But some of these races from the higher harmonics started to become involved in what was happening. Some of these fallen races that were derived from the original Guardian races and the Christos founders races, they started to get involved. And so let's just identify a few of them. And this is now, I think we're back to kind of like 250 million years ago as a time scale. But this was a race that was formed from the Anu. They, again, meddled with the genetics and created this more ferocious sort of, malevolent version, I suppose, of themselves as, like not a soldier race, but ones that could do their bidding, could send them out to do certain things. Extremely powerful, dark avatars. And these were known as the Anu Alahim, fallen angelic race. So these are, imagine an avatar has capabilities of teleportation, manifestation, pure energy rays emitting from their body. These are kind of on that level, but they're just dark, right? Not people that you want to mess around with. So these we need to, put into the frame because they give rise to a lot of the fallen races that end up really meddling in what was happening in planet Earth. So they created, for example, a different stream of Anunnaki, and these were known as the Syrian Pleiadian Nibiruian Anunnaki. So these were formed at a later period of evolution, but they were really kind of used to interfere in what was happening in the human race in a very particular way. And these are the ones that we have particular records with, particularly the Sumerian culture. You can see there, that's a classic archaeological artifact where you can see the humans on the left worshipping the Anunnaki, who is clearly kind of, at the very least twice as high. They apparently stand sort of 12, 14, 16 feet high. And there are statues throughout history that have shown them. For example, this one holding a lion like a pussycat, like, okay, I'm just going to pull you into my side, do as you're told, I'll smash you if you don't. But, it gives you an idea of the magnitude of these beings. It's no wonder that ancient mankind just sort of bowed their heads and thought, oh, okay, we'll fall in line. Water, saying a lot of words here. So they are generally depicted by these, bearded kind of beards, again, really huge. Some of them were depicted as bird-like in some carvings. I'm sure the name Anunnaki, which actually means those from the skies came, or those from the stars came. That name can be applied to any interstellar visitor, really. So perhaps they kind of confuse them with the bird races, the Ceres and so forth, or derivations of them. But point being, this is, well and truly within our history. There's physical evidence, as there are for the other races, but plenty of books around on the Anunnaki. But the important thing about acknowledging the Anunnaki is that I'm not sure if there's any people that watch Gaia currently, but you'll see that within, I don't know, even the Cosmic Disclosure, or I forget the name that goes through the history, they're kind of painting the Anunnaki out to be the good guys, aren't they? They're trying to painting the Anunnaki to be the gods that created us. And as you know, and now we're really coming down to it, aren't we, as to why this information is so important and why it's so important to have out there. Because if the Anunnaki are going to seed this thought form within the mind of the collective, once again, that they are the overlords, they are the creators, we were birthed from their genetics, although they doubtless had a role in our evolution at a very fundamental level, definitely. And I'd make a side note at this point to say that there are benevolent Anunnaki that are highly evolved. They're still at the avatar level. And there are fallen Anunnaki. These are called the Anunnaki rebellion or resistance. So I'm talking about these ones. There's different factions, just like there's good humans, there's bad humans. There's a range within the different stellar races as well. But the Anunnaki that are within the Anunnaki resistance are even currently now trying to integrate our culture and have them believe that we are subservient to them, that we owe them their allegiance. And if you look at what's happening within the narrative, within the governments of the world, even within the congressional hearings, they're trying to talk about, we've got UFOs visiting, you've got the military personnel coming out giving testimonials in front of Congress. I mean, this has been going on since the Disclosure Project with Dr. Stephen Greer in 2002, but it's kind of now starting to come out into mainstream. Like, okay, UFOs going mainstream. They're calling them UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. So they're starting to create this narrative, and it's either going to be, one of two things. Potentially, they're going to want to control it from a human level through Project Bluebeam, create holographic manifestations of ships within the atmosphere. Oh, the aliens are invading. Don't worry, we'll save you. And, play this kind of Hegelian dialectic problem reaction solution in David Icke's simplistic way of explaining it. Create a problem, say, but don't worry, I know the aliens are coming to get you, but we'll save you. We'll just, we'll look after you. So this could be a way in which they try the super psyop. It's kind of the final card, so to speak, according to many people in the know, is that they create this alien invasion scene, perhaps with Project Bluebeam, perhaps with a few kind of, secret military craft, 3RTB, I think that's the one, and various other anti-gravity vehicles which have photoradionic weapons applied to them. They can just take shit out. They can create a lot of destruction and then act like the Anunnaki coming in and going, all right, we'll clear out these bad guys. We've saved you. And you see how that is the classic rulebook, isn't it? There's a great virus going around. You're all going to die. Don't worry. We've got a vaccine for you. We're going to save you. Is it good for you? Probably not. So it's probably going to be this narrative. And this is why this information is important to get out right now. And so we're kind of seeding the mass consciousness with it, because I don't see a lot of people talking about it, at least in a way that's comprehensible. I certainly don't profess to be, a scholar or someone that really knows the material thoroughly, but I think at least it's been presented here in a way that you can kind of make sense of it. It's relatable, it's acceptable, and it has credibility, I think. So if we can start to see the mass consciousness, perhaps we can eliminate this attempt at taking over the paradigm, therefore the thought form, therefore the evolutionary destiny of humanity ultimately. So that's the Syrian Nibiruan Anunnaki. And I'm guessing that these beings were involved in, and this is almost, a little bit amusing. Oh, there's like these mutant dolphin beings now kind of starting to get into Atlantean stories perhaps. But apparently this is another race that really interfered, the bipedal dolphin people from Sirius A. So at the expense of losing credibility, I'm not going to go further into that. There's not actually a lot said about them. Apparently, they're very malevolent. There's obviously a very kind and benevolent manifestation of cetaceans on the earth, but apparently those are on side with the Anunnaki, and that's sort of part of this united intruder resistance that have this agenda for the earth. So another race, and I'm trying to move quickly here because there's a fair bit to go, that were birthed, I'm assuming, out of the this race, the Ceres, were known as and this is the degradation of their genetics, the Omicron or dragon moth. So the genetics had become so degraded that it was perhaps an integration or a hybridization between the original Ceres and the Athean, the insectoid creator beings, the Christos founders races. But it degraded and degraded, and this is, after millions upon millions of years, into this, which is not necessarily an accurate depiction, but something like that. Doesn't that look like kind of a dragon moth? That's it. That's what they're described as. Interestingly enough, as a side note, Omicron was a name taken on for one of the variations of COVID recently, wasn't it? So what's going on there? So the Omicron dragon moths are like, dark avatars as well, extremely powerful. And they are like forerunners to some of the races that are kind of interfering in what's happening in the Earth evolution right now. They're quite involved. They were in the Lyran system as well, Vega. They're from Vega 250 billion years ago. So again, that's Lyra. Vega's the bright star. It's next to Hercules and Draco in our celestial map. So not too sure what's going on with, this was also, where the Anunnaki fell and created the Anu. So it was around about that same time period where these other beings were created, the Omicron dragon moths. So these Christos founders races, the degraded versions, where am I going here? I forget where I'm at my presentation now. Created a further race, and it's almost like it's starting to become like a Warcraft character or something, isn't it? And just remember that as the AI creates the manifestation of the image, it's just utilizing ideas that are circulating on the internet to come up with something that looks like what the description is. But apparently the Odedicron are the original reptilian race. They're draconian, fallen seraphim. And so you remember the seraphim were, these colossal creator beings. These are fallen from that genetic lineage and become known as the Odedicron, original reptilian race. So again, they're back in the kind of 250 billion years, which is sort of zipping back to acknowledge where the original roots or foundations of the forthcoming races that are now associated with what's happening on planet Earth. And we're not going to get to it, but we're getting closer to our time frame now. This race was known as the Drakon. And again, it might not necessarily be walking like upright dragons, but apparently they have this kind of appearance. I think they may not necessarily have enormous wings like that, but it's, a fierce and aggressive stream of reptilian kind of dinoid appearing beings, as the Voyagers described them, called the Drakon. And so now we need to know about the Drakon that were derived and created by those draconian races, the superior dark avatars, because they started to create a lot of problems back in about a million years ago. Well, a long time ago, the dinosaurs were originally seeded onto planet Earth, according to the CDT plate translations, around 375 million years ago. They were originally a placid sort of, what is it called? Plant eating. Don't know why that word's eluding me. Vegetarian based species. They were non-aggressive. They were placid. But what the Drakon did is they come in and they started capturing them and then manipulating them genetically. And this is interesting stuff, isn't it? How crazy is this with all our Jurassic Park and blah, blah. But this is apparently the history. So the Drakon genetically engineered the placid dinosaurs, the original dinosaurs, and created these aggressive hybrids as their monitors. So the Anunnaki created cats, walk around, big cats, little cats, I'm assuming that there were dog beings such as Anubis that created dogs. We love dogs, don't we? But they're monitors. Just as a side note, I just think this is really amazing because every time you pat a cat or a dog, that's like a message, an energetic message that's sending and going back through the light fields. So those original creator races telling you who you are, telling them who you are. Not bad, huh? But the Dracon come out like, yeah, we need some monitors on the planet. Let's create these. So they create the kind of Tyrannosaurus and Raptor type lineages within the dinosaurs. And they were aggressive because the Dracos, like their forefathers and creator beings, the Draconians, were very aggressive, militant type beings. And so it was at that time that they took the early human races and they literally abducted the humans and did experiments on the humans. Just crazy, isn't it? Upright dragons with spaceships doing experiments on humans 1 million years ago. Apparently it's true. But they did experiments, and this ties into our time frame because this is what created these beings, which were a mixture of human genetics and Dracon. And these beings, so now we're coming to kind of a more contemporary language, were known as the Dracos. Computer's taking a little bit of time to load here. So they were the Dracos intruder race. They are messing with us right now in modern times. If you go to, some of the Super Soldier Talk, I'm sure some of you will have looked through Super Soldier Talk and these sorts of forums and listening to YouTube's on videos. And I really find there's a lot of bullshit in the Super Soldier kind of forum. Who was the guy? James wrote, he created a really brilliant documentary called Changes on the Horizon initially, which was awesome. But he went ahead and created all this stuff about Super Soldier. I think, it comes down to just needing to have something to do. So he was bringing all these people that were saying, yeah, I'm from secret space program. And they're just people that are just making noise. You can tell if you have any level of intuitive discernment, then it's just people making noise. So the whole Super Soldier thing become discredited. But nevertheless, some of them are credible. And Corey Good, for example, talks about how the military, the governmental military, and this goes into the, QAnon theory and secret space program. And we have the secret space program and you have to go, I'm not going to go into it now, but we have originally the Nazis that took it out of space, created bases on the moon, on Mars, brought in additional manpower, so to speak, brought in the military industrial complex of the Americas to up their, the scale of the operation. And, more and more people get involved and you end up, having different factions. Anyway, at some point, many of the people, once they realized that the secret space program, the Nazi faction were basically working side and side with these Dracos, they were like, holy shit, this is demonic. We are not going to have anything to do with this. And so they defected from the program. And this became known as Solar Warden. So it was kind of like the good guys within the secret space program. There's a whole lot more to it that we don't have time to go into here. But in short, we have this advanced technology that's gone out into the galaxy that has, teleportation and hyperspace capabilities likened to Star Trek. And so there's, the war is going off planet and on planet. But anyway, you've also got the Earth Alliance that are read into these secret black ops programs, and they're aware that the Dracos had created underground caverns within the Earth environment. And according to Corey Good, some of these military people came and they went into the caverns, kind of, hadn't really been told what to expect. And they were faced with these 14-foot high, 12-foot high Dracos, incredibly aggressive with high technology, and just lost it. They just lost their minds, freaked out, ran. It was like they were just getting annihilated by these dudes. So they're on planet now. I don't know what the recent update is with the deep underground military bases and so forth. We're not going to go into this, but in the next presentation, perhaps we'll start getting toward the more contemporary stuff. For now, let's just do the forgotten history and not get too carried away, as interesting as it is. So the Dracos intruder race had significantly involved in more contemporary times. And so they sent them out, even though actually we're depicting the Dracon, they're a harmonic universe one race as well. I'm just putting them up there so we've got space to show everything else. So they created the Dracos 1 million years ago by tampering with human genetics and creating this hybrid. And the reason why this is such a problem, historically speaking, is because the Dracos are part human. So in other words, they think the Earth is their, it's their stomping grounds. Like, we're part human. We deserve to be here. So that's their attitude. They think they can just come in and take over because they're part human. So these guys, by the way, if we shift over to here, I've just depicted, they are located predominantly in this Orion star system now and have been historically. So they intervene and obviously get to Earth somehow. But these guys, about 1 million years ago, I'm just going to go through the backstory of what happened, because it's pretty bloody interesting and it needs to be on record, is that they sieged Earth around 1 million years ago. And remember, they set loose their monitors. But the problem about that is that the monitors ended up having quite, such a problem on the surface of the planet. And this is where we're kind of getting into more of our acceptable history, isn't it? Oh, now we've got dinosaurs chasing humans. Well, that seems a little bit believable. So 1 million years ago, terrorizing the human populations. So here we go. 956,500 million years ago, the Anunnaki step in again. He'd say, here's our opportunity. Dracos have caused a problem, or problem reaction solution. Seems this one goes back a while. So the Anunnaki step in, come up with a solution. They say, look, tell you what, we can deal with this Dracon and their monitor situation. What we'll do is we'll create targeted explosions just beneath the crust of the planet to destroy their cavern system. And so they went ahead and did that. But unfortunate thing about that is that because they were creating targeted explosions within the crust, it created an imbalance within the energetic grids of the Earth. So the ley lines, the meridian lines, the life stream that actually is the pulse of the planet. And as a result of that, set off massive chain reactions right across the continents and ultimately destroyed everything. So as everything was sort of going down, this is obviously the end of the seeding of the second seeding. Some of the human populations were welcomed into the inner Earth, and they created subterranean cultures that exist to this day. There are advanced beings that have already been living within the Earth for millions upon millions of years. But at this stage, it was like, okay, the surface is going to shit. We'll save a few. We'll bring them in what they could. And following that, between 956,500 and 950,000 years ago, there was a period of ice, I think, for perhaps maybe 8 or 10,000 years. So the surface was completely uninhabitable. Of course, that took care of the Dracon problem, and of course the dinosaur problem in general, didn't it? But obviously some survived, and after the ice came down again and the races began to emerge, the Elohim directed Ceres, which was a race from Harmonic Universe 3, to breed with the humans and created a race called the Ceres. So the Ceres were forerunners or ancestors of what became the Egyptian pharaonic dynastic lineages. So it was a different race, but then, later on along the lines, this sort of tradition was passed on to, human hands, but that originally originated with the Ceres from Harmonic Universe number 3. These are pretty advanced beings, no doubt. That became what we can relate to as the pharaonic rules, but this is, much, much later. So obviously Egypt's been around for a lot longer than we think. The Syrian Anunnaki at this point in time bred with humans, also creating the Nephilim. So we have, in other words, the guardian race coming and breeding with humans, creating the Ceres. So we've got a guardian human representative. We have the Anunnaki going, we can play that game too. They came and they fed the humans with their usual distortion of superiority and so forth. And the interesting way that they did this is that they started seeding this idea that females should be subservient to males. So they're patriarchal. And, domineering. And the female should be subservient to males. This is where the idea was introduced from the Anunnaki. And they did that so that they could have the leverage to mate with the females, in other words, breed with them, because it's like, well, we're superior. You have to basically do what we say. And as a result of that, they created the Nephilim. So these were, kind of a bridge between human beings and the Anunnaki. Obviously not as colossal as the original Anunnaki, but kind of an intermediary that were perceived as giants. I think the Nephilim are mentioned in the Bible, for example. David and Goliath. David swings his sling and smacks him in the head and kills him, all that sort of stuff, right? So at this point in time, one of the guardian races, which was an Elohim race derived from those original, I'm assuming, the Anuhazi Christos race from harmonic universe number 4, but these ones were harmonic universe number 3, and they intervened at this point. And as a result, they had the 1,000 Years' War. So as we're going through this, although it seems like I'm covering a lot of material, I'm skipping out 90% of the information. I'm just trying to summarize it, because otherwise we'll be here forever. But I'm making kind of the main points. And as we move forward with further presentations, if people are interested, I'll cut back and I'll go into depth about different parts of history, because I think it is important. But between 850,000, 848,800 years ago, there was this, what was become known as the 1,000 Years' War between the Elohim race of harmonic universe number 3 and the Anunnaki, who were kind of fighting for control over the Earth territories. And at this point, the Brino, so these are the geomantic entities from harmonic universe number 5, they stepped in and said, stop. You can imagine these great big godlike entities echoing their great Om voices across the lands. And I think it's a bit sensationalized, for a cinematic value. But, they stepped in and said, no, we're not going to continue this. But they had decimated the Earth at this point because of the, 1,000 years of war between advanced races with photoradionic and, sound-based weapons. It's going to cause a lot of trouble. And so what happened is that they negotiated and said, look, it's like the dad pulling the kids up. And so it's funny how the image has been created, like their children being told off. But these Brino from harmonic universe number 5, that's the primal light fields, remember, the immortal, eternal beings, they said, what we'll do, kids, is we'll allow you to oversee the third seeding of the human race, because at this point they destroyed basically destroyed the Earth, or the surface. It wasn't really livable. So they had to give it time to clear up and get back on track of things. I'm sure Mother Earth was able to do that through wind and rain and so forth. But they said, you can both become involved in the third seeding of the race. And so then the Anunnaki were required to kind of pull up their socks, start behaving nicely at this point in time, and start playing ball with almost like, co-guardianship or mentors for the human race with these Elohim from harmonic universe number 3. So that was the ending of the second seeding of the human race. Still one to go. My God. Let's keep going. So the third seeding of the human race was 849,000 years ago to the present age. And once again, plot back on the planet. Let's go again. So at that point in time, of course, it's not quite so simple, is it? And this was when Lemuria and Atlantis were still on the surface of the planet. The Anunnaki resistance, there were factions of the Anunnaki that said, no, we're not going to do as we're told. They're like, spoiled brats, bad children, won't listen to the parents. A few of those around. They form an alliance with the Drakon and the Drakos at this point, because it's like they're being outnumbered. Not only do they have the good Anunnaki that have put up their socks and they're starting to listen to the Syrian Council and the higher harmonics, and also that advanced Elohim race, the Leonines, coming from the third harmonic that the Egyptians worshipped, hence Sphinx and so forth, and Sekhmet. But they had to basically deal with those. So they thought, right, we better team up with the Drakon and the Drakos, because they have a conqueror agenda for Earth, right? And so that was taking place. And then 52,000 years ago, the Dracos invaded the civilization that had developed from the first seeding. Obviously, we've skipped forward a bit, but, we're already kind of over 3 hours. What's the time now? Started 7, well, over 2 hours into it. And as I said, we'll come back, and if you're interested, we'll cut back and give a bit more detail. But the Dracos invaded 52,000 years ago. And at that point, the humans were advanced enough. They had the crystal power generators, and they decided to use them, and, misuse of power, use them to destroy the layers that the Dracos were situated within. And once again, this misuse of planetary power for destructive purposes just continues to go awry, doesn't it? So not only were the Dracos completely destroyed in their lairs, but sure enough, it set off a chain reaction within the energetic grids of Lemuria. And as a result, Lemuria was completely destroyed and went under the oceans circa 50,000 BCE. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit. So after the sinking of Lemuria, much of the civilizations, a lot of them, obviously it didn't all just, suddenly happen. There were explosions, the land masses were going down. It took a number of probably thousands of years to complete. But during that period of time, the races retreated to Atlantis and to Egypt and so forth. And these started to develop these cultures once again. But, and I'm just sort of cutting to the bad news. We'll skip the good news. Yeah, it's all happy. But we're going to touch the points where cataclysmic changes took place because it's significant, because then, it's different from that point, isn't it? But the Anunnaki resistance started infiltrating Atlantean culture, and they began again, converting the priesthood, or the ones that were in control or in power, and began kind of poisoning their minds with the original paradigms of the Templar solar initiates. Remember from the planet Terra in second harmonic, the original Garden of Eden that the Turanusium were birthed onto. And so that same kind of paradigm of elitism and arrogance and domination started to creep in. And so the Templar Anu started to take on this idea of, yes, we should be in control. So 28,000 BCE, they started to try and take control and misbehave. And it was at this point where the Syrian Council stepped in. And this is, the Maharaji Syrian blues, i.e. kind of Krishna et al. He stepped in. And at that point in time, and this sort of goes into a challenge with regard to over summarizing the intricate detail of the history, is that we haven't really talked about what happened with the sphere of Amenti, what happened, how did the second seeding get seeded, how did the third seeding get seeded. The second seeding was seeded, I think, by memory, through a portal passage that went from the Earth to the Andromeda Galaxy called the Ark of the Covenant. And that was a portal passage, I'm just giving a side note here because we've kind of skipped it, through which the sphere of Amenti was delivered to the Earth's core so that evolution could take place. It was in the third seeding shifted to the Sirius B, which was, remember, the planet of the Syrian Council, these Maharaji, and taken through the third eye of Horus, the portal passage that delivered the sphere of Amenti, because every time the planet got massive cataclysms took place, they had to remove the sphere of Amenti because it could have been problematic. The race memory could have been damaged, and now you've really got problems. So they removed it, put it in different star systems, and it had to come back. So it went back through something called the third eye of Horus. And these were portal passages through which you could literally gain an instant access to the Syrian star system, to the Pleiades, through to the Andromeda Galaxy. So different areas of interstellar residence. And that's just the backstory to, explain how these Templar Anu, they wanted to take control and actually decide who was able to use these portal passages, thereby who could have access to Syrian Council, for example, who could have access to Andromeda, a different galaxy. And so at this point, the Syrian council come through and basically said, all right, you guys, you're being a pack of assholes. Therefore, we're not going to allow you into the Great Pyramid and give you access to these portal passages that are associated with the third eye of Horus and the Ark of the Covenant. So, of course, these Templar Anu became very, very angry about this. They became vengeful and started plotting their revenge. And so it's like, oh, here we go again. So they retreated to Atlantis from Egypt, which was where the portal passage was located, ancient Egypt. And the Templar Anu decided to once again draw up massive power from the planetary core into their great crystal generators. And what they planned to do was destroy the security shields around the Great Pyramid so that they could just launch an invasion and take over and basically control who had access to the portal passages, the teleportation chambers that gave access to the rest of the galaxy. I hope I'm not talking too fast. Certainly I am for my ability for the voice to keep up with it. Well, I hope we're getting to the end because I've run out of water. Anyway, of course, what happens? They overload the crystal generator, begin panicking. Oh, we've done it again, kind of thing. And the crystal generator once again explodes in Atlantis. And the enormous explosion, and it says in the Voyager's material, that it was like 10 times the power of an atomic bomb. And a chain reaction took place within the other crystal generators of the island of Atlantis, or the continent of Atlantis. And this resulted in a massive chain reaction that destroyed the entire continent and basically sent it. This is the ancient story of Atlantis going under the waves, you know, so it passed on through history. And so what remained was just 3 Atlantean islands at this point in time after the 28,000 BC cataclysm. So it was after this that within the Atlantean islands, within Egypt and within the inhabitable lands, they still had, now we're getting closer to our kind of relatable history, they still had the high technology because some of the crystal generators were still available on the surface. And this answers an age-old mystery as to how they built the pyramids, because according to the CDT plate translations, they used Ankhs. This is a kind of theatrical expose to demonstrate it that the AIs come up with. But apparently, I think it was more likely that there was one great enormous Ankh that would channel energy from the great crystal generators. And there was also, and again, I've skipped out the part relating to the staff. This ties into concepts of wizards in the past wielding magical staffs, but there was a portion of Terra's morphogenetic field, the blue ray, or the blue flame rather, that had been contained within an actual implement, a literal staff that was given to the priesthood in these times, and they could wield planetary power. So using Ankhs, the staff of Amente, and the great crystal generators, they were able to create these, reverse the magnetic fields of the enormous granite blocks that they built the pyramids with and levitate them into place. So it was, it was doable to regenerate society after the great Atlantean cataclysm because they still had high technology. And this is what happened. And again, of course, I'm fast forwarding. We're being time sensitive, but skip forward to 9,558 BC. The Templar Anu, once again, resentful that they have been blocked access to the portal passages of the Ark of the Covenant and the third eye of Horus and so forth. And so they plot again, this time to actually completely destroy the Great Pyramid, which was built originally, I think we skipped past that, but something around 48,000 BCE. So it's been rebuilt a few times, but it's a very ancient structure. But the original Great Pyramid was built as a housing, as a protective measure for the sphere of Amente and the Ark of the Covenant that was being housed directly beneath the Great Pyramid. That was the access point. So the pyramid was originally to protect it, right? And so it housed the sphere of Amente that was connected through portal passages to the inner earth called the Halls of Amente. So it was a point of significant access, not only interstellar access, but also you could get into the inner earth through this. So they're like, nah, fuck this, we're going to do something about it. And they overcharged their crystal power generators at the Atlantean Islands. And they this time used it, and the image is not entirely accurate, but apparently they created a subterranean destroyer beam where this electrical discharge went from their crystal generators of the Atlantean Islands all the way ripping through the planet and targeted the Great Pyramid that was securing the portal passages, the Sphere of Amenti, and so forth, remembering that the Sphere of Amenti was the race memory of the entire human race and the lost souls of Terra. So this is literally like insane. But anyway, they tried it, and they didn't realize that the Guardian races had placed a security seal on the pyramid just in case something like this happened. It went through the portal passage, and again, I'm summarizing here, it wasn't just the security seal on the Great Pyramid. Apparently the energy beam went through the portal passage of the Ark of the Covenant beneath the pyramid all the way back to I think it was Andromeda. So it was like epic. And the Guardian races just sort of said, yeah, I'll pay that back, and I'll add some. So it came back with a double overtone, twice as powerful from what it originated, and returned to sender and completely annihilated, not only exploding the remaining crystal generators, but destroyed the remaining Atlantean islands, and they went under. And this is located now in the area of the Bermuda Triangle. So I think at that point, perhaps maybe one of the stargates or one of the portal passages that was over in the Atlantean area, or it could be even that some of the great crystal generators are still on the ocean floor, although the Syrian Council did remove them largely. But this could explain the anomalies in the Bermuda Triangle, right? Because of these energetic changes that took place many years ago. So following that, massive tectonic shifting took place. Land masses moved around, colossal waves washed over the surface of the earth. And this is the biblical flood, which Graham Hancock refers to as the Younger Dryas period, circa 9,558 BCE. So during that time, the races were welcomed into the inner earth because, of course, they could see it coming first, to take shelter as the earth changes took place. So a lot of the, Egyptian and even Atlantean cultures, the ones that were behaving, were welcomed and protected. And some of them at this stage were also welcomed onto starships. They were removed from the planet. So this sort of, ties into this amazing concept and mystery of Egypt and, Stargate, and how they believe that they had interstellar visitors and those from the star came, and the Egyptian gods and all this, right? It's pretty fascinating, isn't it? So at that point in time, the Syrian Council removed the great crystal generators from the earth. Like, unsurprising, isn't it? It's like, all right, you guys, I think you've done this enough now. So it was that point they, removed the crystal generators, and this explains why we were no longer, there's no explanation as to how we can create these pyramids these days, because we were reduced back to basically the ones that survived had to start again like hunter-gatherers. And this is, post 958,000 BC. Well, this is a roundabout dovetailing into the very beginnings of these kind of hunter-gatherers, starting with societies, the Indus Valley civilization beginning to emerge. It starts to dovetail into a historical concept that's acceptable to a contemporary academic viewpoint, So I don't know how many words I've used, but it's been a lot. I've seen that most people are still here with us. Some people probably practically couldn't stay for this long. I hope you've enjoyed this overview of the hidden history of the human race that has taken place prior to our recorded history. It's the first step in bringing this knowledge back out. Well, the CDT plate translations was the first step, but on a broader scale, as we start to bring it out in video format, it becomes more accessible. And the more people that know about this, isn't this changing your paradigm? If you know what you truly are, what your potential truly is, and where we can potentially go, if you know what the threats are, if you can see the narrative emerging that the Anunnaki is starting to plant already, you already know from this record what's happened in the past every time, isn't it? Every time they take up this narrative of we're better, we should be in control, let's dominate. It ends up in a power overload, civilization gets destroyed, and humanity needs to be reseeded. So this is why it's important to start to spread this information. We're going to stop it here with at least with the narrative. We've kind of got into that hidden history endpoint. Again, I'll go back and give more detail if people are interested, but there's a lot more to be said between the sort of 10,000 BC time frame and even up until the year 0, and through another 2000. So there's loads more we can look at, which we will do. I'm sure many of you will be interested, but enough said for this evening, isn't it? What I'll do now, and I usually do this, for example, on webinars, is, of course, give a webinar special for anyone that's interested. If you're inspired, if you're new to the work, or if you haven't taken the opportunity yet, then this is not just something that we talk about. It's not enough to just have knowledge. You need to, if you realistically understand what's being said here, that we are walking avatars that have degenerated into limited mortals. If you want to return your system back to that unlimited nature, there is a systematic process through which the DNA can become activated. And this is contained very fundamentally on a basic level within the Lightning Path program that is on the Human Metamorphosis website. So that was originally just those elements of Kriya Pranayam, the genetic activation protocol, and the Pranic Fire Awakening manual. But recently what I've done is I've added to that the further 5 Lightning Path online classes, and that was a separate product. Each person, you remember, if you're on those webinars, had to pay, I think it was 108 or 144 for each class. So you're getting a lot more. And although they're recordings, like I said, it's quantum. It doesn't matter what space-time coordinate you participate. It's light. And just like, you can record a movie in the 80s, you can still watch it now. Doesn't matter what time frame you're in. When it's quantum, it's quantum. So you can utilize that, go through the activations, begin the process of light accretion, and then have all that support, all those many classes that will really give a great amount of knowledge into accelerating that potential. That was in the Human Metamorphosis shop for 432. But I've also added in the golden DNA activations. There's webinars. I've explained where this has come from. I won't go into detail here, but essentially Mahavatar Babaji went to a light race in a different universe and said, we need some urgent changes taking place. What have you got? And they said, let's do this genetic activation protocol. So that became known as the golden DNA activations. And although I've kind of just talked to it quite casually, just think about that for a moment, what I just said. The immortal avatar, guardian, Babaji Nagaraj, a legend who's been around for thousands of years, went to a perfect light race of avatar beings and said, what have you got for us? What can we do to help? Have this, the golden DNA activation. So that is now part of the Lightning Path. Those that are already on the program have access to that now. But for those on the webinar tonight, if you want to get involved and start with your accelerated genetic regenesis, then I'm just going to click onto the text chat here, a link through which you can access that. Okay, I'm putting that through to everyone now. Do tell me if you are not getting it. I think that's gone through to everyone. But I really encourage you. I'm not going to, everyone knows I'm not the person that likes the whole pushy sales pitch thing. I'm just saying this is an opportunity that's available for everyone. It only works if you apply it. It doesn't work if you just think about it or have wishful thinking. There's a specific process that I detailed in the last webinar, the original Timelines of Destiny, where I kind of symbolically put it across that it's about accreting light into your system. And the DNA activations are like opening the doorway through which that light can shine into your system. The Kriya Pranayama is the process of assimilating that light into your system and really expanding your energy fields up into those higher dimensions. But enough of that, a little bit of admin before we go into, for those interested, a bit of energy work. I'll be running the next Deep Pranic Soaking class on Sunday, the 25th of January next year. And this is absolutely the most powerful class that you can attend if you want to accelerate this process. I've recently been getting a massive upgrade in the level of power that's being given to me by the Devi, by the goddess. And she's kind of been playing with me a little bit. It's like for every additional layer that you go up, it's a higher level of discipline and impeccability. And you're kind of walking on the razor's edge, so to speak. You take one step out of line and you'll find that that additional level of power is removed. So it's like, you know, you've got to be impeccable. And certainly I'm not saying that I'm impeccable. I'm working on a lot. So this sort of explains that I have to be next level with my discipline, because she's given me this opportunity to draw up this power that would have taken me perhaps 2 hours to build up to. And now she's, you know, dangling the carrot of, you can pull it up in one breath and use that. So that's massive. And although I can definitely access that, you know, within a period of time, which I always do for the deep pranic soaking class, from this point on, I will be running that new current of energy through the class. And it's like, it's like a transformer through which a greater current of energy can be stepped down and given out into the people that are participating. And again, I'm not trying to, you know, sell it, so to speak here. I'm just explaining what it is, because when that light enters your system, you're going to go into expedited genetic activation at the most accelerated rate that your current body and physiology can handle. And those that have been to this class will know that I think there's a particular person on the webinar, his life gone a little bit cray-cray since the last class. So it's game on, isn't it, mate? It's game on. You're being pulled up. You are being called up for duty, and it's time to put down the toys and get real about it. So it's another level of duty. We need, particularly the men, but all of us, but particularly the men, to stand into their leadership energy, because, as you know, there's a bunch of dickheads that are trying to tell us what to do from positions of political authority, and they simply don't understand this. They're going to follow the fallen solar Templar initiates creed of patriarchal elitist dogma, and it's going to end up in a shit fight. We need people that are willing to embody these Christos potentials, become walking guardians upon the planet, and model the Christos light of egalitarian society, and to model that and to show the people how it's done. So this is how it's done. We need people to step up, both males and females, of course, but particularly males. And so I didn't put this in there, but I've created also a men's program, which I'll overlay for the recording. If you really want to have my support with accelerating that process, get onto the men's program. And every month we're going to just keep moving forward with it. But that's enough for now.